happy Saturday morning. Saturday marking is setting up, so we know that life is good. Things are happening as they should happen. And so I'm not gonna, we know what we're all here to do, so I don't think I need to create a framework for you. So I know that many of you are dog lovers, and my esteemed colleague has a dog named after me. So, you know, we have a bond. I have often thought about my dog, that it was my dog who actually really guided me into evaluating what's the most important thing in life. That is my dog that reminds me to get exercise and take a walk. My dog that reminds me to pay attention to the weather and be interested in the details. It's my dog that reminds me to sit quietly sometimes and just, you know, take in life and not rush around so much. So with that, I have brought Dog Songs by Mary Oliver, who is a great dog lover and had a dog named Percy. I'm going to read you a Mary Oliver poem just to set the tone. Percy speaks while I am doing taxes. First of all, I do not want to be doing this. Second of all, Percy does not want me to be doing this, bent over the desk like a besieged person with a dull pencil and innumerable lists of numbers. Outside, the water is blue, the sky is clear, the tide is rising. Percy, I say, this has to be done. This is essential. I'll be finished eventually. Keep me in your thoughts, he replies. Just because I can't count to 10 doesn't mean I don't remember yesterday or anticipate today. I'll give you 10 more minutes. And he does. Then shouts, who could resist? His favorite words, let's go! I turn it over like...
Did you just adjourn us?
We're done. We're done. So that's the mark. Take it away.
How do you follow that? I appreciate the opportunity to say something, and I have absolutely no hope of following that with anything graceful at all, other than to say I'm happy that we're here to do this. And I guess I would say it occurred to me that I made a motion during the winter budget committee time once in 2007, and to start a process that went differently than I thought it would at the time or hoped it would, but it did. We started a process that finished last summer, 10 years later, right? And wonderful, with land use issues in our UGB. But sometimes, as we know, these processes take a long time. So I hope in our process of goal setting and our thinking that we remember that while we are rightly planning for what our community looks like 20 years from now, in reality, that's not that long from now. And sometimes the things that we aim for take that long to get to. So I hope we're keeping in mind that our work is about the community that we'll live in 20 and 30 years from now. Thank you.
All right. Well, good morning, Mayor and Council and execs. Thanks for being here this morning. I'm Jason Dedrick with the City Manager's Office. I'll be facilitating your efforts today, which really means I talk very little and you talk a lot. And that's sort of my goal, to make sure that we create a space where you guys can talk and think and interact maybe a bit differently than you normally do. And so I want to thank the mayor for setting the tone that this is a different meeting than usual. We don't usually start with poetry in meetings, so that helps. Our goal is to shake it up a little bit this morning. And I want to thank Councillor Clark for reminding us that although you'll be talking about goals and focus areas for the next 12 to 18 months, those actions may take 8 or 10 years to reach fruition. So there's no, so there aren't any illusions that what you come up with today we're going to solve in 12 to 18 months. So thank you for setting the context. Thank all of you for your time this morning, carving time out on a Saturday, for your commitment as a team to do this work. facilitating teams looks different when a team is committed to the work versus when they're not, and I appreciate the commitment. We asked you to do a little homework in advance to sit down with your exec buddies and talk a little bit about what we're going to talk about today, so thank you all for doing that. That's very helpful for staff in terms of preparing for today. So what we're going to do today is a little bit of work as a large group, but also a good chunk of work in small groups. And so primarily the day is going to be, or the morning will be built around talking about what has gone well for you as a council over the last year. And so you reflected on some projects that you felt were successful or efforts that were successful. What we're going to do this morning is dig a little bit deeper into those and talk about why those things were successful. And that's going to be helpful for us going forward as we look at your priorities and areas of focus in the future. Aside from the content of those areas, staff can understand what it was about the things last year that went well, then maybe we can help build those conditions to make this year's items go as well as last year. So that's part of the goal of that. Then we're going to spend the second half of the morning starting to hone down the list of focus areas for the coming 12 to 18 months. So I've got a couple of handouts that we'll work off of for the morning, no presentations or anything. And again, we'll do some work as large group, but also as small groups. So that's sort of where we're headed this morning. I want to start the morning in what might feel a familiar way for most of you, which is to talk a little bit about best and worst outcomes. This is a very important part of work like this. It helps you to frame a vision, to get in a positive mindset about where you're going, but it also helps to get out there on the table the things that might be holding us back from conversation. So talking about these things right up front is helpful, sets the tone, gets us in a slightly different headspace. So what I'm going to do right now is pass around the familiar, probably 3x5 cards. And what I'm going to have you do is on the front, I want you to jot down 2 to 3 best outcomes of this process. And on the back, I want you to jot down 2 or 3 worst outcomes of this process. And when we say this process, we mean today, as well as 2 weeks from now on the 24th, where you'll come back and we'll dig a little bit deeper to talk about outcomes. So for both today and 2 weeks from now, best and worst outcomes. Oh, and I have pens if anybody needs them. So we'll take, 3-4 minutes for this. Just jot down some quick thoughts, and then we'll share them out. Okay, about another minute. Okay, what we're going to start with first is just sharing out on the worst outcomes for this process. So just going to start with Chief Saludik on my right, go around and just share your worst outcomes, just moving around the circle.
My worst outcome is that conflict would replace creative tension. Another one?
Sure, yeah, you can share them all. Yeah.
And resources not available to actualize plans.
Mine were no consensus around or agreement around issues or policies we should work on, uncivil discourse, and boredom. Jason. There's only one person in charge of that one.
My worst outcomes are that we don't or aren't able to celebrate our successes. We don't agree on the focus areas that will guide us for the next 12 to 18 months. The community loses trust in our collective leadership, and time isn't productive.
So worst outcomes, we can't get to a consensus on our collective goals. We immediately dive into the weeds regarding how we're going to do it. And most importantly, our worst outcome, at noon, a counselor makes a motion to extend the time.
Have no fear, Jenny.
If we're so excited, we just want to keep going.
I'm going to one.
So my worst outcomes were lack of participation, get too far into the weeds, and stay siloed in our individual perspectives.
All right. Mine are leave without a better understanding of the focus areas over the next 12 to 18 months and not able to support things that are important to the community. Lose focus on the outcomes, a little bit of not being too far down in the weeds, and that we don't have fun together.
Mine is too many focus areas or can't agree on focus areas, and results in a huge amount of staff work stacked on already full workloads.
Gosh, every time I do this, I feel like I don't have a worst possible outcome. So today, my three are: I have to sing in public. You leave feeling like you weren't heard or respected, and it starts raining at noon.
That's bad.
Those would all be bad.
Rain is, mine is a lot of talking, a lot of repetition, and the rats and the turkeys come to visit.
Mine it parallels what others have said, lack of agreement about what are the key priorities this year, lack of clarity in the process of our collective decision making, and the third one, that it feels like a wasted Saturday morning.
Mine were that Sarah has to sing in public. And that we continue to focus on issues with narrow interest group support that lead to continued community balkanization.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I
tend to just do words. My first word is nebulous. We just talk around and around and around and don't really ever reach any sort of an understanding of where we're going. My second word is inflexible, where either people or positions are expressed in a way where you can't really begin to synthesize. My third word is unacknowledged, which is similar to what we talked about before, where people are either not listened to or not acknowledge that their points of view are equally valid.
Okay, we're doing the worst. Lack of vision. We get mired in 1 to 2 themes, and then we have no direction when we leave.
No one agrees about anything, and there are so many ideas that there is no focus. Instead of having a clear path for this team, we all go off in our own separate directions, and staff doesn't understand how to help council achieve your goals.
Okay, so mine are that pretty similar. The fine little agreement among us on priorities, and that if we have this great session, but there's no follow through afterwards.
Thank you. That is the downer part, right? That's the hard part to do. It's important to do that because whether consciously or subconsciously, if we don't speak those fears, they come into your conversations through the rest of the day, through the rest of this process. So it's really powerful to do that and to do it up front. And whether or not you remember what you talk about as your worst outcomes, our goal will be to set the space and the conversations. And as we design your next meeting on the 24th, to create the conditions to avoid as much as possible those worst outcomes. So thank you for sharing those. You were talking about wanting to have fun or not have it be boring. I appreciate that you brought some levity to your worst outcomes. You're already having fun. At least I'm already having fun. All right, so let's do best outcomes again, starting with Chief Saludic.
I have goals have a starting point that starts momentum. We experience shared points of agreement in direction or outcomes, or see that, and that goals and plans help truly define our values.
Mine are Sarah has to sing in public. A narrowed list of council priority or issue and policy areas to work on. Specific attainable outcomes for those issue policy areas. And leave with a sense of accomplishment and direction.
Again, we identified 3 to 5 areas of focus that everyone agrees on. The community sees leadership that builds trust in how we move forward. We strengthen our relationships, do a lot of laughing. And then again, we celebrate our successes.
So best outcome, we end the day, possibly early, leaving enough time for maybe the mayor to do another poem, with a clear set of goals that both council and staff will embrace. And we leave feeling energized to come back in a couple of weeks to develop strategies for advancing our goals in a meaningful way.
Such a planning mind. So my best outcomes were greater clarity about what is important to both individual counselors and council as a whole, enthusiasm for the process and the next session, and stronger connection between council and staff.
That we build a shared understanding of the focus areas and learn more about how the desired outcomes and how as staff we can support those outcomes and achieving those outcomes, and that the clarity of that we receive provides paths for addressing community concerns, and that we have fun and get to know each other a little bit better.
We learn from each other by better understanding our various perspectives.
We learn about the things that matter most to you and how we can best support you in your community leadership roles, and you leave feeling seen, valued, and heard.
I want to know what you mean by fun, but that's what I wrote down. But I'm waiting for the fun. For a concrete plan for a homeless shelter. That doesn't mean one made of concrete, but a real plan. And
see that I was going to say.
And And I wouldn't hope that Sarah had to sing, because if I had to sing, I would die. So I know how that would feel.
That wouldn't be fun.
I plans for delayed work sessions on inclusionary zoning, a strong nuisance ordinance, and C2, and a discussion of C2 zoning.
Oh, okay. I had, as others, clarity about our group priorities and, of course, my favorite theme, clusters, that we would identify some clusters that we're going to work on through the year of issues. Stronger communication between council and staff and among counselors. And then my third piece really, that these two pieces combined will bring a sort of stronger communication with the public, better back and forth engagement with the public about how that we've identified things that then we are communicating very clearly to the public.
My best outcome is that we would focus on pragmatic items that can be accomplished and that are important to all counselors and can garner a large amount of community support, and that as a side benefit also build community cohesion in the process of working towards their accomplishment, and that we find a way to address the important as well as the urgent.
Two words that I've used for years now, clarity and certainty. But I think clarity is also not just for us, but also clarity for the community, so that people understand clearly what it is we're trying to do. And the certainty that this is the direction we've chosen, this is the direction we're going to go. And then I've added a third word that really came home to me in the past year, and that's commitment. That we can be interested in things, but you have to be committed to things in order for them to actually take place. And so we have to translate just talking about stuff and being interested in it to an actual commitment to do it.
Yeah. Best outcome, I don't catch Jennifer's cold. We create a shared vision, focus on higher level thinking, and look towards the development of a strategic framework for processing our issues.
Council agrees on a small number of focus areas for the next year, and staff understands what success would look like for those initiatives, and we how to help you.
Mine was that we have a group buy-in on the clear vision of our group priorities, and we come out with some kind of framework that helps us determine what gets attention and when. And that when I go home, when this is over, and my husband asks me if this was worth getting up before noon, I say yes.
All right, thank you, everyone. Some great sort of action words in there that I really enjoy in terms of thinking about process, things like energized, enthusiasm, leadership, momentum, cohesion. Wonderful words to think about as you go about your work today and in a couple weeks, because I think more than what it is that you talk about, it's going to be how you talk about it and the enthusiasm that you bring and whether or not there's cohesion and the leadership in the way that you carry yourselves in these conversations that will probably matter the most to you as a group as well as to the community. So thank you for sharing that, and hopefully that can be something that will translate through the rest of the morning. So in light of shaking things up and keeping things a little bit fresh and having this not feel like a work session, we've got a brief video for you. It's about 8 minutes long. I'm not going to tell you what it's about. It's going to feel very much out of left field, but we'll talk about it a little bit afterwards.
What's the song, sir?
Community. Family. We are family.
We are the world.
Mind singing out loud?
Nope. All the time.
Okay. I have no idea what we're going to play. I won't be able to tell you what it is until it happens, so I didn't realize there was going to be a little music before, so I think I'm going to start with what I just heard. So the bandstand, as we call it, this is an incredible space. It is really a sacred space. And one of the things that is really sacred about it is that you have no opportunity to think about the future or the past. You really are alive right here in this moment. There are so many decisions being made when you walk on the bandstand. We had no idea what key we were going to play in. In the middle, we sort of made our way into a song called TT Boom, but that could have happened, maybe, maybe not. Everyone's listening, we're responding. You have no time for projected ideas, right? So the idea of a mistake, from the perspective of a jazz musician, it's easier to talk about someone else's mistake. So, the way I perceive a mistake when I'm on the bandstand, first of all, we don't really see it as a mistake. The only mistake lies in that I'm not able to perceive what it is that someone else did. Every mistake is an opportunity in jazz. So if something, it's hard to even describe what a funny note would be. So for example, if I played a color like we were playing in a palette that sounded like this. So if Christian played a note like playing F, see these are all right inside of the color palette. If you played an E, see these all lie right inside of this general emotional palette that we were painting. If he played an F sharp though, to most people's ear, they would perceive that as a mistake. So I'm going to show you, we're going to play just for a second, and we're going to play on this palette, and at some point, Christian will introduce this note, and we won't react to it. He'll introduce it for a second, and then I'll stop. I'll talk for a second. Ready? Well, no. Let's see what happens when we play with this palette. So someone could conceptually perceive that as a mistake. And the only way that I would say it was a mistake is in that we didn't react to it. It was an opportunity that was missed. So it's unpredictable. We'll paint this palette again. He'll play it. I don't know how we'll react to it, but something will change. We'll all accept his ideas or not. So you see, he played this note. I ended up creating a melody out of it. The texture changed in the drums this time. He got a little bit more rhythmic, a little bit more intense in response to the way that I responded to it. So there is no mistake. The only mistake is if I'm not aware, if each individual musician is not aware and accepting enough of his fellow band member to incorporate the idea, and if we don't allow for creativity. So jazz, this bandstand is absolutely amazing. It's a very purifying experience, and I know I speak for all of us when I tell you that we don't take it for granted. We know to be able to come on the bandstand and play music is a blessing. So how does this all relate to behavioral finance? Well, we're jazz musicians, so stereotypically we don't have a great relationship to finance, but anyway, I just wanted to sort of point out the way that we handle it, and the other dynamic of it is that we don't micromanage in jazz. You have some people who do, but what that does is it actually limits the artistic possibilities, right? If I come up and I dictate to the band that I want to play like this, and I want the music to go this way, and I just jump right in, ready? Just play some time. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. of chaotic because I'm bullying my ideas. I'm telling you, come with me over this way. If I really want the music to go there, the best way for me to do it is to listen. This is a science of listening. It has far more to do with what I can perceive than what it is that I can do. So if I want the music to get to a certain level of intensity, the first step for me is to be patient, to listen to what's going on, and pull from something that's going on around me. When you do that, you engage and inspire the other musicians, and they give you more, and gradually it builds. Watch. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Totally different experience when I'm pulling ideas. It's much more organic, much more nuanced. It's not about bullying my vision or anything like that. It's about being here in the moment, accepting one another, and allowing creativity to flow. Thank you.
When I was in high school, I was in a jazz band. I didn't really like it. Didn't do well with it. Part of me now thinks it was a bunch of, 16 to 18-year-olds who were more concerned about themselves than the idea of coming together as a team and collaborating. And so as I've grown as a collaborator, my interest in jazz has also grown. And so I hope that you take away some things from that. Obviously, the wonderful collaborative nature of jazz and how that relates to having conversations like you're going to have today, building off of each other, listening to each other, hearing what someone else is saying and taking it and then innovating, taking it a different way afterwards. The idea of reacting to each other. Talked about sort of micromanaging and being in the weeds, or micromanaging and sort of bullying ideas. I see that a little bit more as with jazz sort of micromanaging where you want something to go. Or maybe what it means is being a little too much in the detail. And several of you mentioned worst possible outcomes for today, maybe being a little too much in the weeds. And I think that where we're hoping that you go today is stay there a little higher today. Be creative. Think about what it was precisely that contributed to the things that went well last year. Think about broader planning, staying up higher. And then in a couple weeks, we'll have the opportunity to go in the weeds a little bit more. So hope that you take that away. And then finally, that today and in a couple weeks is your bandstand. So he talked about how your bandstand isn't about being in the past or in the future, it's about being in the moment. And although you're going to be talking a lot about the future, this is your sacred space. This is your bandstand where you get to sort of play together, hopefully in a different way than how you normally play. So just a little something to get you thinking differently about the work we're going to do today. So anyone has anything else they'd like to chime in with, we can.
I like the open windows.
Yes. Yes. They're great.
What did you play?
I'm sorry,
What did you?
Trumpet.
Me too.
Great. Yeah. Good jazz instrument. Yes. Thinking about taking it up again. All right. So we're going to transition now. What we're going to do for about the next 45 minutes or so is talk about what you felt good about from 2017. So what I'm passing around right now is a combined list of everything that you said you felt good about from last year. And what's important about this list is the diversity of topics that are here. Some of you talked about topics, some of you talked about process. What we're really wanting you to do, so what we're going to do right now here in a minute is break into small groups. We've got, break into 3 small groups, and we've got sections around the room where you will go. And really what we'd like you to focus on is what it was that made these things go well, okay? So the temptation will be to talk about the climate recovery ordinance and the feeling that that went well, and sort of maybe the satisfaction with the content that emerged from that. And what we really want you to focus on is what was it that made that feel good to you last year? Was it the process? Was it something staff did? Was it a community conversation? Was it a conversation that you had at a work session or at a meeting, but to really dig in as small groups as to what made those things go well, again, so that we can try to pattern those and carry those forward and be more deliberate about creating the conditions where your work can go well in the future. So again, this is a combined list of everything that you said, and hoping you can stay sort of up high a little bit when you're in your small groups, thinking about what it was that went well. You'll have a mix of counselors and execs in your small groups. Mostly we would like for you counselors to be doing the sharing. Certainly staff are there as a resource. One exec will report out on your discussions to the full group when we're done. There are flip charts at each of the small group areas. You can use them or not use them. But we just want you to keep a little bit of a record of what you talk about so we can come back as a full group and talk about that. So any questions about this next little bit of time?
Where did this list come from?
I'm sorry?
Where did this list come from?
So each of you met with your exec buddy. Excuse me?
I didn't do it.
Okay. I'm pretty sure that I thought that you had.
But we had rescheduled for
Okay.
next week.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Is there anything you'd like to add to the list? Actually, that's a good reminder. I meant to do that. Is there anything you don't see on that list that you feel good about, Councilor
Naming
Taylor?
Kesey Square and naming Kesey Square.
Okay. Great. So jot those down on your list, and they may come up in terms of what it was about that made that go well. So again, each of you will have different feelings about what went well in the last year, but I'm betting that there are some underlying conditions involved with why they went well that perhaps there's commonality on, as opposed to the individual projects and the outcomes.
So what you want us to talk about is what made for these things to be able to be successful?
Correct, yes.
As opposed to the specific things that we were successful about.
Correct, yes.
Forgive me for being a contrarian. It's not my nature. What if we fundamentally disagree that someone else's listing of the issue that went well is something that went well?
I think it would be, we'll see if this is possible, but our hope that, let's say there's an issue that you felt felt good about the outcome on, but someone else did not feel good about the outcome on. The hope would be that there are underlying things about the process, regardless of the outcome, that perhaps you can all feel good about. So potentially the type of community engagement, community conversation was good, or the conversation at the table was a good conversation, just didn't result in the outcome that maybe somebody wanted. So it does require you to divorce yourself a bit from the outcomes and try to focus on process. It's not easy. It's challenging, I admit.
Well, I would think there'd be something to learn, even if we disagree that the process went well. I mean, there's something to learn there too.
Yes, yeah, and there may be and so it doesn't have to all be positive, right? There may be moments in your conversation where there's something that did not go well for you, and perhaps that's something that we can help to improve upon next time around too. So there is something to be learned from the mistakes, using the jazz lingo. So let's not ignore anything that might have felt like a mistake too. That has an important part of your conversation also. Okay, so we're going to split into groups, and what we're going to do here is counselors, you will travel with your exec buddy, so two of you go together. So counselors Ye, Pryor, and Taylor will be over here in this group of chairs. Mayor Vinnis, Councilor Evans, and Councilor Zelenko will be over here with this group of chairs. And then Councilor Clark and Councilor Siret will be over here with this group of chairs.
By the window.
And we're going to spend about 35, 40 minutes in your small groups. If we need less time, we'll take less time. discussions in small groups. I touched in on a few of them and just, heard what you were talking about, observed your body language, really enjoyed seeing what I saw. So it feels like you guys had some good conversations, but we'll find out in a minute what you talked about. Quick reminder here, just to make sure, since we're sharing mics today, to make sure if you're going to speak to turn a mic towards you so we can make sure that we pick up the audio on the webcast. So, all right, so what we're going to do now is just kind of quickly report out on what we heard. We're not going to do a whole lot with it in terms of synthesis, but really just so that we can all hear what you were talking about. And then that information will become the foundation of some of what we do on the 24th. So we won't spend a lot of time on it today, but it will come back. So I'd like to ask, I want to start with the group that Christy and Renee were in. If I could ask you for just sort of some, the goal here will be just a few minutes, a couple minutes on from each group on high-level themes where there's some important takeaways you want to share with the group.
All right, thanks, Jason. So we had a really great conversation and covered a lot of topics. And I would invite Renee if there's anything to add, or Mike or Claire to add anything that I've missed. So one of the key themes was really focusing on areas where we come together as a community. Where are the places where, as you're thinking about the future and opportunities that the future brings, where is it that we come together and there's some shared common interest, and try to think along those lines. Listening to the community, honest, sincere process that actually provides a voice for the community to step forward, and there's not a perception that maybe there's already a direction plan, but they actually have time to provide input. That there are new voices that are emerging in the various process things that are moving forward. One of those that was mentioned was the fiber project, and new groups coming forward with an interest in different topics. And agree that there's a city role in whatever it is that the topic might be, and sometimes that is a little bit challenging. That it's not necessarily a role that the city has played in the past, but maybe an expectation from the community that we are now providing that role. That the work of staff, there's been some smart work done that has provide a higher level of communication, a well laid out plan with goals that are set forth that are achievable and reasonable and continue to progress. Again, a couple of examples of that were some of the work on the progression of the Parks and Rec system master planning, and also the fiber project in particular was another one. Open to new ideas as we're working through different process, and it's how it's related and reflected in the process as we gather new information and ideas. Let's see. Success, another key point was success in involving and engaging with our partners. Again, the fiber project came up, and then the downtown riverfront projects that are moving forward. And then just stressing that ongoing and regular communication updates, keeping council informed. So.
Great. Anything else anyone from that group wants to add?
I apologize if I missed this because I was writing down some of the things we had discussed in our group. I think that idea that Mike raised of looking for a vision for our community and helping, that is informed by what the community thinks that vision might be, and keeping our eye on future opportunities and what we want our city to be accomplishing in the future, and instead of and resisting the impulse to keep hearkening back to old fights and keep looking forward.
I would add, and thank you, I agree. I would add that there's a pattern that emerges there, and I think it's important for us to recognize the pattern that balkanization happens when we're fighting old issues continually over things we know there's already disagreement about, where more frequently the as of yet unaccomplished or the as of yet unimagined provides an opportunity for the complete use of the diversity of our community in ways that brings people together better, creates more cohesion. When we're doing something new that doesn't involve old fights, we have an opportunity to grow together more effectively. The riverfront, new sectors in our community being part of that.
Great, thanks. Good discussion in that group, obviously. Okay, next group, Denny and Sarah, your group. What would you like to share?
Denny and I are trying to figure out how we can put this all into a really good crock pot metaphor, because I think that was what we walked away from thinking. It was the things that our group felt the best about were the things where, starting with the kitchen, so I'm going to go full on with this metaphor, there was kind of like a civil tone, collegial nature among the council, where there were really clear roles. Like we knew who the chefs were. We knew that you were in a policy role leading us, and that staff were in a staff role delivering. And the best projects, we were really doing that very well. You had a really clear recipe. You knew from the beginning what it was you were trying to accomplish, and you were able to determine like the right levels of portions. And it was balanced, so it had a TBL perspective. So when we started, we were kind of already thinking about all the different ingredients that were going to go into this. We marinated things. Not only did we cook them slow, but we had
Pryor's Day.
Yeah, things went really well. We had really solid early alignment between the community, the council, and the staff. A good example of that was something like the climate recovery ordinance, where there was a lot of marination before we ever really kind of started into the process. There was a lot of groundwork done by staff, behind the scenes information that was really timely and helpful for you. And we spent a lot of time listening to each other and listening in the community. We also, we experimented, tried things, and responded to things. So there were times when we feel like we may have hit an F sharp of South Willamette, but we also then could shift and pivot to some place that might have been more ready, River Road. And we had a good review system. So whether you want to call it a Yelp review system, or do we just got feedback from our friends, but we had a really good sense of promises made, promises kept, or within a process, really strong feedback loops of staff in particular being able to say, we heard you, report back, and just keep kind of giving you information. The bite-sized chunks really matters, because the things that I think went the best were ones where there was really consistent, regular communication, that we started and finished in a good rhythm of how information came to you, how you were able to make decisions. That's when the things went the best. I have a ton of notes here that I'll take, but I think that was, the processes were very inclusive, so everyone got to participate in the community. And I'll see if Denny has any other chef tips.
I think the things we worked on that kind of followed this recipe that were mentioned were the urban growth boundary expansion. That was successful. Parks and open space work. Police recruitment is another example that was mentioned as well. It's kind of following this recipe and seems to be going well. So.
Slow cooking recipe.
Slow cooking. Not an instant pot, but a crock pot.
Anything else anyone like to share from that group?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think.
Well done. I like the metaphor.
Awesome. I think that, you know, our recent movement forward with Envision Eugene, after 7 years of marinating, has, you know, begun to, you know, I think we'll rapidly realize some results that we were all pointing for in councils previous to this one. And I think that, you know, we're making progress. Seeing stuff come to fruition that, you know, didn't look like that was going to be the case.
Great, thanks. All right, I see Sue's got her flip chart ready, so.
Yeah, I have really big notes. There's a lot of, I wrote down a lot of stuff, but I think there are really two main points I would make out of what we talked about. First was that we were successful when we talked to lots of different people, got lots of different perspectives. We were inclusive, we were collaborative, more than just a few people had their voices in the process. Although we do understand that can slow things down, but that was where we had the most success. Things where the community had an idea and we worked on it together. And I think the second point I would make is a lot around the jazz improv. We were successful when we had a good process, when we were able to take ideas and change them, improve on them, where we were able to adjust as we go, where we were able to balance between our patience and timing for an action, so we kind of knew when to go and when to wait for other voices to occur. And we were able to respond well when someone had another idea. Let's see, the group was Betty, Chris, Jennifer, Joe, and me. So I don't know if any of you, that was like a really short, I mean, obviously we talked a long time, but if you felt like I missed anything really important there.
I think part of what we also talked about, what are the realistic expectations on when you get things done? Whether that's staff responding to council or council's expectations with the public or the public's expectations with us. We need to be very clear about what the realistic timing is for getting things done, and so you don't create an unrealistic expectation and then everybody's frustrated. So that requires a lot of clarity, but a lot of communication as well.
Well, thanks everyone. Great conversations. I think I like the recipe analogy because I think what we're talking about is, what you're talking about is really creating the recipe for future success. And once we all have an idea of what that recipe is, it's much easier to replicate it. I like the idea of expectations, kind of like dinner's going to be at 6:30, being clear about when things will happen and how they will happen. Because if you think dinner's at 7 and it ends up being at 9, you're not very happy. Or it happened and you weren't at the table. So I think that's really important. And a lot of what I picked up, a theme from what you talked about was that people really need to be a part of the recipe in many ways, shapes, and forms. If it's staff, if it's new people, new partners, that we're cooking something here, and people are an important part of the recipe, which I think isn't surprising, but to hear it come out as a theme, I think is important.
As long as they're not in the form of Soylent Green.
It's people.
But another part of that is the marination part, the prep work, the groundwork that occurs. You can go back to all the successful things and say that had good groundwork to it, yes. And the things that an appropriate kind of groundwork. We worked on South Willamette for years, but it blew up because it wasn't the right work.
And I think that documentation piece becomes important. How many times do you cook off a recipe at home? You've changed something. You didn't write it down. The next time you go to do it, it doesn't work out well. You're like, oh, we changed it last time. So it's really about documenting the ways in which the recipe works so that we can replicate it. Councilor Pryor.
And to keep with the cooking metaphor, if you've ever made stir fry, you know that you can spend an hour chopping, cutting, organizing, putting together, and then it takes 10 minutes to cook. And it cooks very quickly because of all the preparation work that you did. And so sometimes a good, well-prepared process, if it's done properly, means you can cook this thing very quickly when you get to that point. And to me, that's the satisfaction. Yeah, and it's why you invest an hour in cutting and chopping, because you know you'll be able to cook in 10 minutes and have something that tastes really good.
Councilor Clark.
My children are sick up to their eye teeth from the number of times that I say to them that the key to happiness is expectation management.
Ditto for my kids. Let's not get them together.
So I just wanted to piggyback on what Chris said. I think sometimes at the table, there's been that hour, the metaphorical hour-long prep that a lot of the public didn't see. And then we come to the table with that prep. Yeah. The public doesn't have it, and they're like, why did you do that so quickly? Mm-hmm. But we had the confidence of our prep, but it's difficult to communicate that to the public. So actually a whole lot of work went into that before we came together to have the public conversation and take the vote. And it looks like we're rushing or being sloppy, which we can also do that. That's not what I'm talking about.
Okay, so we're going to transition here. We're going to spend the rest of the morning talking about areas of focus over the next 12 to 18 months. And so again, this is based on the information that you shared with your exec buddy. And so we're going to do a couple things here. First, I'm going to talk you through some of the details of this list. And then we're going to take a minute just to see if there's anything that's not on this list that should be on this list. And then we're going to move into small groups and work a little more with the list. So as you can see, as this comes around, this list represents everything that you shared with your exec buddy about areas of focus for the coming 12 to 18 months. They're broken into content and process items. So the top list, all the things that are sort of specifically related to a project. And then below the process items, you're saying a potential area of focus could be how we work together. Everything that's in bold was mentioned by more than one counselor. And so there are 10 items there. And I think our goal to shoot for by the end of the morning would be to somehow, through your small group work and then coming back together, to try to get that to 5. So we'll see how we do on that. If we need to do a little work between now and the 24th after today, we can do that, staff and in cooperation with you. But that, I think, is the goal, is to try to get this list of 10 down to 5. So let me talk you through quickly, and these items, the bolded items, are in no order. They're in alphabetical order. City Hall, I think, is relatively obvious, big topic, not much needed there. Climate recovery, you mentioned continued implementation of the Climate Recovery Ordinance, the Climate and Energy Action Plan, and working with the community on those issues. Community engagement, most of your comments were around, or the specificity on this was around making sure the community is engaged, and communities that are different from the ones we typically hear or see or hear from or talk to. So some of those members of our community that are underrepresented in our processes you mentioned. Downtown was quite broad in terms of your interest, everything from downtown programming to the park blocks to development downtown to retail downtown. So it's a relatively broad topic that you mentioned in different ways. Economic development was relatively straightforward, further development of our existing sectors, our existing businesses. Homelessness, again, sort of covered the breadth of the issue, big issue, and you touched on many parts. Public shelter, human services, rest stops were some of the key ones that there was overlap on. Housing was probably one where there was a lot of consistency in saying the breadth of the discussion of housing and needing to be integrated. So you mentioned things like tiny homes and SDUs and zoning, affordable housing, all of these things, but several of you mentioned the importance of having it be integrated into one discussion rather than you're feeling that it's currently happening in a way where they're each separate topics. So there was a theme to that one. Parks and Recreation, the discussion was twofold, or your comments were twofold, either around the bond measure itself or around being mindful of longer term funding, maintenance, development of the park system. Public safety primarily was about EPD capacity, whether it's number of officers or funding, as well as community court was also mentioned. And then just in tandem with downtown, public safety downtown was also mentioned. And then rural reserves had to do specifically with the idea of sort of the UGB going forward, needing to be talking about rural reserves as well as through the lens of what it means for protecting farmland. So that's sort of a quick tour of those 10 items that were the ones that were mentioned by more than one of you. What I'd like to do now is to...
Can I just mention a couple quick things? It's probably urban reserves, not rural reserves, and that's why we talk about it.
Yes.
Urban reserves. And the other, I think, maybe we just should acknowledge that, these items will actually, to use the analogy, stay on the stove. Part of the question is which ones do you want to turn the heat up on over the next 12 to 18 months? So, for example, just because police onboarding maybe only got one vote, we actually will onboard a new police chief. So those are the kinds of things that actually going to happen. And so don't think that if they're not that focus area that they're dropping off, no one's ever going to hear anything again about them. But it really is sort of which ones do you want to turn the heat up on over the next 12 to 18 months, and what does that mean then for council and staff as we move forward?
Councilor Taylor, are there items you'd like to add to this list?
Again, I wasn't involved in this at all. And I guess it's my fault, but I didn't know. I had to postpone a lunch with Chief Saludik, and I didn't even know what the lunch was about. Whoever asked me to, and something else, there was something else I had to do, so I wasn't there. But I would have said revenue too, but I would say new sources of revenue.
Okay.
And I would have said something about all the work sessions that have apparently disappeared, or they're on the list, but where you don't know when they're going to happen. And some of them I think are really urgent. And I think if something's urgent, then we shouldn't postpone it in favor of discussing something that doesn't really have any urgency, which I think has happened a lot of times. And if I thought more about it, I might say more things, but thank you.
Christy.
You talked about City Hall and kind of moved through that, and I just want to make sure that I know there just that broad interest around the siting of City Hall, whether UWeb, different blocks, or whatever the case may be, but it's really a very broad topic in the context of City Hall. So.
Other questions about this, Councilor Clark?
Just two quickly. Number one, I just want to say to everybody that I said earlier, I don't know Bill Sullivan. I've never met him, and I had nothing to do with that. Number two, when we're talking about downtown, where is that?
We've had that discussion at the staff level a lot. It means different things to different people.
Just asking the question.
Well, we always refer to it as the downtown plan area because we actually have a downtown plan. So
Yes, we do. It includes the riverfront, doesn't it?
yes, that's that's how we use it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Would you like a City Hall at UWeb by chance?
I'm just asking questions, man. I'm just asking questions.
Do you need an apron?
I got a nice hat, though. It's,
Other items that, sorry, yes, Councilor Lincoln.
Why do you distinguish process items?
Just to separate them, there's no, not better or worse, just more different. You could, if we're talking about 5 areas of focus for the coming year, it allows you to, sort of see the difference between process versus content. You could select 5 process items as your area of focus for the next year. So no real rhyme or reason, just to sort of separate them out.
I think also what we generally have sort of periodic process sessions that we would anticipate having also. And so these could come back there, or they could be one of the top 5 if there's more heat that needs to get turned on those more urgent. We didn't want to lose those and still have them during a regular process session.
Everyone feeling comfortable with this list before we go into small groups? So I want to amend this list for you based on the feedback from Councilor Taylor. So her comments, the way I would interpret them, would add additional voice to the item on new revenue, as well as the item on council process. So treat those as now being bolded, and that makes your task even more of a challenge. You now have 12 bolded items. And the goal in your small groups will be to bring that list down to 5. And I think it's really important to keep in mind what John just mentioned, which is we're talking about the items that you'd like to turn the heat up on. Not everything will stay on the stove or in the oven. But really it's about what does it mean to make these areas, these 5 areas that you choose, an area of focus.
And areas of focus are stuff that the council wants to prioritize that we work on as a city. And while police chief onboarding is critically important, I don't see that as much of a council thing. You're going to do that, John. That's your job. So that would be one of the things I would put on the list. But so it's really about what the things that the council wants to see move forward.
And I think that's an important thing to be talking about in your groups. Which of these items might fall into that camp versus areas that you want to deliberately be taking time on, perhaps in a different way than you have. Okay, so we're going to move into small groups now. Your same small groups, same process. Counselors weighing in. Again, execs, your goal is to lead counselors to, out of each small group, 5 items. And go. Yeah. and get back together here.
Sorry, 55?
So here's what we're going to do. Besides be done exactly at 12, which we are, and by my cell phone, we have 2 more minutes than that clock. So I'm on record saying that. Yeah. Actually, we have half an hour according to my cell phone. Yeah. All right. So here's what we're going to do. Going to have each group report out your 5 items. Hopefully you had 5. We'll see if you were rule breakers or not. I'm going to get these down on the whiteboard. We're going to see what we've got. We're probably not going to spend a lot of time with these. What we're going to do, though, is depending on the number of items on that list, and if it's more than 5 combined, which I have a feeling it might be, what we're going to do is come back on the 24th, and staff will come back with information on the items that collectively you put up here. We'll come back with that information on the 24th, and that may help you narrow that list further. So you may learn some things about what's currently going on with some of these items that may change the way in which you feel about having them as a focus area. So we're going to quickly get these down, then do just a quick closing and be out of here at noon. So, all right, I'm going to start with you, Renee. Tell me what you guys came up with.
So just a point of clarification, do you want anything related to it or just the items?
Let's just stick with the items for now, and we'll capture, you guys had some discussions about outcomes. You might have some nuances on the topics. We'll get that after, but for now, let's just stick to what were the primary areas you came up with.
Okay. We had, in my group is Claire, Mike, and Christy, and we were solid on 4 of the focus areas, and then each Mike and Claire had the 5th one was different. So I'm going to give you 6. You know, we're future focused.
Doing what we can, man.
Right, they each had 5. City Hall, in no in particular order. City Hall, economic development, housing, public safety, Parks and Rec, and homelessness. And Parks and Rec and homelessness were the 2 that.
Great.
Outliers.
Thank you. All right. Sarah and who else was in your group? Sarah and Denny.
Denny, and
Yeah.
then we had Councilor Evans and Councilor Zelenka and Mayor Venice. So we have the thing on the right, and similar, everybody agreed, all 3 on housing, and when we talked about it, it was really to include missing middle and homelessness, so housing kind of incorporated all of that. The next one, we changed the title to Economic Growth and Stability, which would mean we're taking care of downtown as part of that. We were the cluster group. And then the third one, I can't read it from here, but I think it says safety, livability, community justice is the third. So that's how we were kind of talking about the safety element.
Okay.
And then we had, similar, we had a couple that were strong on the climate and resilience, and Parks and Rec, and infrastructure generally, like kind of our city assets and investments. Does that seem fair? You guys have more to say to that?
So in addition to climate and resilience, do you want to put Parks and Rec up there and infrastructure? I just want to make sure it captures.
Yeah, how are those?
I mean, Parks and Rec with the infrastructure, I mean, I think we generally talked about the city's investments. Parks and Rec is one of them, but also, you know, the rest of our infrastructure.
Yeah.
Our aging infrastructure.
Okay. And so I put check marks on the ones that were duplicated from
We
other
had a question
groups.
about, we were kind of still hadn't figured out where we were at with City Hall.
And Jason, just for clarification, public safety, can you put in parentheses, community justice, and you also talked about livability?
Safety.
Just so that's, at least for that group.
Okay. All right. Third group. Where are you? Who will be reporting? Okay.
We had Councilor Taylor, Councilor Pryor, Councilor Ye, Sue, and myself. These are in no order, but we had really good discussions. We actually went up with 6, but we morphed it into 5 with an umbrella of a process which includes community engagement.
Yeah, we included that in
So
everything.
we can't get any of the other ones done without the appropriate community engagement. So that was a little different. And with that engagement, we talked about an active process that had a metric to measure our progress and that eliminated barriers. And so that we spent a fair amount of time on that, and it became clear that that was different than the others. And then in no certain order, we had housing, affordable housing, a continuum of affordable housing, homelessness. We had City Hall felt like it was making progress. It didn't have as much anxiety about it as some of the others, but it was on there. Public safety and new revenues, potential for new revenues.
Okay, great. So let's see. We have 6 items here that received more than one vote that it feels like there's pretty solid consensus on. We have a community engagement metric sort of outcomes piece that feels a little bit more like an umbrella, or I heard some of that discussion, sort of a foundation that would be behind a way in which of going about these items.
We said
Okay, good. And then a few other items here that were reported by one team: climate and resilience, infrastructure, the city's aging infrastructure, and then new revenue. What I think we're going to do from here, to continue with our analogy this morning, I'll give John credit for this, is that we're going to marinate on this. Clearly, you have some clear prioritization here on these 6 areas of focus. I also heard at least one group talk about the idea that homelessness might be underneath an umbrella of housing. So that may be a nuance that we come to as we marinate a bit on this. But our goal at staff will be to bring back information on all of these items to you on the 24th. And we will begin to, that additional information may help to narrow this list. And then that will also be information that you can use to start talking about outcomes. Comments on this list, Councilor Taylor?
New sources of revenue is what we talked about. I mean, it's not just increasing current sources. So I think it's important you say new sources of revenue.
Check marks are when there was more than one group mentioned that one. Councilor Clark.
We had, as a part of our conversation, as a part of economic development, I think infrastructure and what that word means is a pretty big part of the conversation of economic development. So, I would hate to see that get dropped off there. I think maybe one of the ways to talk about it is to subgroup it there.
When you say infrastructure, is that like fiber or
high-speed fiber downtown? We don't have smart roads yet like they do in Ohio, but we should soon. What does tomorrow's infrastructure look like and why?
Okay, so quickly talk about next steps. So we will return on the 24th. Again, staff will be bringing back information on each of these to help you weigh them further, and then to start talking about outcomes on these. So very quickly, Councilor Syrat.
Do you expect that day to be a similar schedule as today?
Don't know yet. I think we're going to have to start. We're going to be thinking about what our objective is for that day, and making sure we have time for everything we need time for. So it could be. There's a possibility. It could be slightly longer. Could be the same amount if we think we can do it. So.
Okay. He's got to marinate on that.
We'll have to marinate on that.
Would that be early morning too?
Like downtown, we'll have to define what early means, I guess.
I was going to say, we didn't do early morning today.
The only one.
It was early.
Like a work day.
We would expect it to start again at 9 o'clock unless there was just really adamant disagreement.
I disagree.
We started at mid-morning today.
Morning. Noon. We can go from noon till evening.
No.
Morning's fine. I can get up.
Morning's okay.
All right, we'll have more communication about that. Okay, what I'd like to do really quickly, and this is something that will help us as we plan for the 24th, is just a real quick, a couple sentences from each of you on what worked well for today, and sort of how you feel, just how you feel after 3 hours of this as a springboard into the 24th. So I'm going to start with Councilor Ye. Have everybody just weigh in really quickly on how'd you feel about how today went?
So, when I mentioned whether it was worth getting up this morning before noon, I think it was. I particularly liked the small groups because it really felt like we had a better opportunity to really listen and react to each other's thoughts. And so I thought that was a great part of the process.
I like the combination of the big groups so everybody can kind of hear what the thinking is. And I did like the small groups for the same reason as Jennifer. I thought they were good discussions.
I felt that we started to clarify some things as far as our visions are concerned. It felt like, we had some movement there, and, kind of capturing the top 10 or top 5, issues or themes really kind of resonated for me.
Yeah, I thought it was good. It's incremental progress, so we're not there yet, but we are beginning to assemble the pieces that will eventually, so I'm encouraged.
I think this was worthwhile. I think it was well done. One of the things spoken about frequently, and I've said, is the constant tension in council between the urgent not crowding out the important. So this was an opportunity for us to spend time on important and how to balance that effectively with the urgent. So that's good. That's awesome. I hope that on the 24th we come back, and I felt good about what I got to participate in on the 24th. I hope we talk more about the outcomes under each of these topics as how to have council work sessions where we list what meaningful metrics of success are for each of those areas. I hope our council work sessions that come as a result of these topics are ones where at a policy level we have discussion about what does success in each of these areas look like for us, so that it can help you with the specifics.
Is that the same as outcomes?
What's that?
Is that the same as outcomes?
Well, the metrics of it, yeah. If it includes sufficient detail, yeah.
So I have two reactions. The first one is that I really just like the structure of the morning, and I think it really worked well. It was very helpful to begin by looking back at what worked and then looking forward. And then my second comment is just gratitude to all of you for doing this, because last year we didn't do it, and I was a brand new mayor. And as to quote Alan, it was a fire hose shooting at me all the time and trying to figure out, really what's on deck, how do I anticipate what's coming next, and even trying to figure out the agenda. So I'm just really appreciate the staff effort that went into creating this morning, because I think it's been very helpful to all of us, and I have found it particularly rewarding. So thank you.
I didn't find it that rewarding, but I would prefer to have the whole group discuss things and their reasons for why they think something's important. Thank you.
I feel really good about the morning. I'm excited for the year, and I particularly enjoyed the first part where we talked about what were the elements of success, and really, even though I've experienced this just like you have, really talking about it intentionally and kind of starting to define it was super helpful for me. So thank you. I think you did a great job, Jason. Felt great.
I was going to mention the first part as well on what made things go well. I think there actually was a lot in that, which we can take not only for this group, but actually throughout the staff. So I'm pretty excited about that. And then I think what I think about is how does Emily get brought into this conversation in a meaningful way? And so that's just kind of thinking about that. I don't have the answer for that. But.
I thought the day was very, very informative, and I also appreciated the conversation that you guys had about what worked well and why it worked well, and then also what didn't work well. Quite frankly, what did we learn from that? What's the takeaway? And kind of where we're headed in terms of the discussion to provide some clarity. I think it's great. Thank you.
Thanks. I thought the morning was very productive. I enjoyed our small group conversations. I felt like it was a good opportunity to have a dialogue in a different way, and I actually came away with some new ideas, new ways to think about how we frame things. And I want to give kudos to Jennifer for showing up in spite of not feeling well.
So thank you.
I also thought the morning was really good. I love the video and how it set the tone for the rest of the discussion and made us really think about the recipe for success and all those kinds of things. And I just thought generally the tone of the whole day was relaxed, casual, safe, all those things. I thought it was great.
Yeah, I would just build on, I really liked the video, and I really appreciated the conversations in the small groups. And I learned some things that will really help as we go back, specifically around how you're thinking about the future. And so that's really helpful. Looking forward to the 24th. And I would like to throw a shout out to everyone back there that's sitting, that had got up with us today and fed us and kept us happy, because they're a great team too.
Yeah, I thought it was well structured, and I always thought of this as a two-parter first, and where the finalization of this comes in the second part. So I think we've got set up well to go into the second part and narrow this down and get to a good set of issues that we want to prioritize. Turn the heat up on.
Yeah, I really enjoyed hearing from counselors about how timing relates to a job well done, how that feels for their satisfaction. And in the second session, how community engagement ties into that timing. And so it really all came together, and it did play off that first video. So I really had a valuable morning. Thank you.
Well, thank you everyone for what you brought to today. Your energy is what makes it go. So, Mayor, anything you want to close with?
No, just, I mean, I wish I'd picked another poem, but I won't, unless you really want one. But no, I really just thank you. Really a great morning. It's a lot to get up in the morning after a full week and anticipating another full week to give up a Saturday. And I do appreciate the excellent food. Thank you so much. And thank you, everybody. And have a good weekend.
Yay, Jennifer.
I'm gonna go home, go to bed.
Yeah, really. Just sleep the rest of the day.
Just to do a thing with Carl tonight.